Hey, this is Sean with the driver's perspective, and before this video gets started, I wanted to give it a bit of an intro. I just wanted to say this is one of the longest videos I have ever made to date, and there's a lot of information packed throughout it, and even with it being so long and being information dense, it's pretty surface level on a lot of the stuff. So if you want to hear more about specific setup information or that sort of thing, leave me a comment below and let me know. But I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, let's get this video started.
Good morning, it's Sean with the driver's perspective, and we're back at the stadium.
Today, I want to show you how to set up your dampers when you get to the track or the autocross, and just kind of demystify it. It's a really simple process. So once I get unpacked and registered, we'll kind of talk about the methodology and the approach, and we'll get out on track and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so it's time to go on course. We've gathered some basic information about the temperature today, and that'll help us get our tire pressure set. But this video is actually about how to set your dampers up. And this is, well, I would say a fairly confusing topic for most people. But I'm going to give you the simple way of doing it. To start, you want them on full soft if you've never driven on them. And the reason for that is you want a damper as soft as possible to still control the car without it being too stiff where you're skipping over bumps. If a car is too stiff, it's just going to basically hop over imperfections in the pavement, and that's actually bad for grip. And it seems counterintuitive because most people think, oh, if a car is stiff, it must be fast because it reacts quick, which is true. You lose some reaction with a softer setup. So let's go take a look at this course. Not going fast enough yet to necessitate worrying about what the shocks are doing at this moment. Whoa, that's interesting. Okay, so what do we think about the car? How did it react to bumps? It did fairly well. Now, I think the rear was hopping just a little bit, so after one more run where the tires get warm, I will actually take one click out of the rear dampers. Now, if this is your first time doing it and you were on full soft, you would definitely notice the car's going to wallow around. It's going to be really slow to react. The ideal reaction to a bump with a car is it should just almost float over the bump. You shouldn't feel it crash over the bump and skip, and you shouldn't feel it wallow, wah, after you hit the bump. So you're trying to strike that balance between the wallow and then just skipping over the bump. Right now I can feel the rear skipping over bumps, so I know I need to take one click out probably in that rear. The front reacts well, it's reacting to bumps okay, so let's take one click out of the rear, and that will probably resolve the skip, 'cause because this parking lot is a war zone at this stage. So let's pop this trunk, and we will take one click out of the rear. Okay, so one click has been taken out of the dampers, and that will soften the rear of the car up a little bit. Should give us a little bit more compliance over bumps, which will mean more grip. So, if you couldn't tell already, the secret to setting your dampers is just adjust them. You know, a lot of people buy really high-end coilovers and never adjust them. I don't get it. You bought an adjustable shock so you could make changes. So don't be afraid to just crank it all the way right. See what it does when it's full stiff. Crank it all the way soft. See what it does. Go full soft in the front and full stiff in the rear. Switch it. Do full stiff in the front, full soft in the rear. See what the car does. Experiment. That is one of the keys to succeeding here if you want to go fast, if that's a goal of yours. And I think it's a key to having more fun too. When the car drives how you want, you're having more fun. That is the trick. So we're going to go out on another run, see how it reacts, and then make another change if needed. Now this has the compliance over the bumps that I was looking for. It's not skipping, which is everything. With one less click in the rear, it looks like we made a good positive change. I want to do one more run to validate what I felt before I make another change, just because with autocross, you know, you have less time out there to really get a sense of what the car is doing compared to a track where you're going lap after lap after lap around the same corners. So doing this at a track day can honestly be a little easier, especially if you have a helper in the pits. But it feels like overall the compliance is there, and it still is reacting quick enough in the corners that I can manage the weight of the car through the fast transitions. So overall, very good. One thing that you might note with this car is that these are fairly high-end dampers from Whiteline, so they only have 10 clicks of adjustment, and each click is pretty severe in comparison to, say, like a 32-click damper. It just means that those have more granularity, so you'll need probably 4 or 5 clicks to get the exact same change as one click on these. Let's do a little launch control. You know, the rear is wallowing a little bit more than I would like, actually, through those faster sections now. So I might go back to the old setting. Yeah, because now I'm getting a little push through here. So I think I will go back to that old setting. So yeah, now the rear's wallowing. So that's another thing to keep in mind. As your pace changes, your feelings about the car will change as well. So at a slower pace, those settings might actually feel more confidence inspiring because the car doesn't want to rotate as easily. So that's another thing to just kind of keep in the back of your head is it's an ever-changing process, right? Like setting up the car is never just, you do it once and you're done. If only it was that way, right? And that's half the fun, I think, for a lot of people is that you have to constantly make changes. Ultimately, it comes down to experimentation, like I said. That's really the big thing I wanted to demonstrate today was, how do the dampers work? How do you set them up, right? You have all these knobs and tools at your disposal, and don't be afraid to mess with it. Now, I could go more in depth with setup. I could try and raise the rear a little bit to compensate for running a softer damper, but I don't feel like doing that today. I don't need to. It's not a competition day, and overall, I'm actually happy with how the car is driving, so I don't need to. But that's just another tool at my disposal for setting the car up. So don't be afraid to mess with it. Let's go see how it feels with one click stiffer in the rear. Yep, better. It's not as lazy, and I get that mid-corner rotation that I was lacking before. This is my first chance at a real hot lap too without catching anybody. A little too much speed there. Really need to go to second there, I think, but that might be a difficult shift. Okay, with that lap, that pretty much verifies what I felt between having it one click stiffer in the rear than the front versus being the same. This track today, these conditions, it wants to be a little stiffer in the rear to get the rotation, and it also keeps the car from being too lazy. So, that was great. And that's how you A/B test, right? We haven't touched any other variables. Yes, I should be checking my tire pressures in between, but I know they're going to be in the ballpark, and I can make an adjustment afterwards based on the tire temperatures I see. So this is not the end of the world, and there's also more practice laps today to do that. And that's kind of the beauty of a day like today is you can actually, make changes, see what it's going to do, and if you don't like it, there's enough time in the day to fix it before you go out for more laps. Not all SCCA days are like this. That's what practice days are for. And I encourage you to try them so you can find the setup that works for you. Somebody's knocking some cones down through there. Car really wants to be in the outside of that corner, but it's bumpy for braking, which is actually what makes it difficult. Okay, one more. Car feels good. I did a little experimentation this week with sway bars, and the results were not quite as I was hoping for. So I actually took them off for this event. The balance just wasn't right without more rear spring rate. So that'll be for another day. It's good just to get more laps in this thing. This is the most laps I've had in a row with this setup. So that's all good. And that is practice.
Autocross is over, the dampers have been dialed in. I'm really happy to have spent the time today setting up the car, taking tire temperatures, setting tire pressures, adjusting the dampers, and really playing with the variables that I have under my control to make the car faster. And, you know, what else can I say? It was a blast down here today. Super great weather and awesome event as always. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see something more in depth in the garage, or maybe have me talk about damper setup in a little bit more detail where it's not so hectic, leave me a comment below and let me know. Otherwise, see you next time. I'm Sean, Driver's Perspective.